let's start with this. What do you make of this reporting that indicates that up to 10,000 North Korean soldiers could well already be in Russia, right, receiving some training, only to be then deployed to the front lines in Ukraine? Do you think the intel there is credible?
I think that it's important to situate this in a little bit of historical context, because we actually started seeing the precursors of this back in the fall of 2023. We started seeing more intensified discussions between the North Koreans and the Russians, including a visit by Kim to Russia. And then, of course, Putin visited North Korea this year. And we've seen kind of this intensification of rhetoric and diplomacy between the two sides. Of course, then the ammunition came. There's the reports of the ballistic missiles that are actually actively being used in Ukraine. And now the basically revelation that there are troops training in Russia. I do think that it is credible because the North Koreans have been very, very eager to learn from Russia militarily. We've seen exchanges between high-level military university officials and sort of knowledge transfer type of exchanges. And all of that to say that I would not be surprised if troops start arriving at least in the front line in the border area of the Kursk Oblast incursion. I think that that is most likely where Putin is going to be deploying North Korean troops if he is deploying them. And this is an important part of the puzzle because Putin does not want to call a general mobilization. He does not want to risk the social upheaval of mobilizing Russian society. And he appears more willing to absorb and integrate foreign troops in order to free up manpower instead of using actual Russian mobilization. So all of that to say, I think it's important to remember kind of how we got here, when this started. And it is a continuation of the path that North Korea and Russia have been on since at least fall of 2023, and is very conducive to Putin's larger force generation calculus in a lot of ways. Of course, we can't confirm the numbers, but I think patterns and indicators are very much matching in this case.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there have been other recent tidbits and little pieces of reporting that have come out. They've talked about 6 North Korean officers who reportedly were killed in a missile strike that they identified. They're talking about now maybe upwards of almost 24 North Korean soldiers defecting. They were reportedly about 4 miles from the Ukraine border. They were in the Kursk region and took the opportunity to defect, which tells me that those particular soldiers had some level of common sense. You've got the idea that Kim Jong-un definitely would like to see his troops get some real-world battlefield experience. And you've got, as you pointed out, you've got the manpower issues that Putin's facing. So you put all that together, and it lends credibility to this reporting that you've got a larger number of troops either in Russia getting training or about to be sent, whatever it may be. But I mean, I suppose in reality, that you then have to ask, well, how impactful can that be? How much of a game changer is that if Kim Jong-un is willing to, do this bizarre gift exchange with his bro Putin?
I think that's a fair question. And as with pretty much everything we've seen in this war, there is no one golden bullet solution, either for the Ukrainians or for the Russians, to completely turn the tide of the war. So if Putin is committing North Korean soldiers to the front line, that doesn't mean that they meet all of their operational objectives immediately. But my assessment would be that if Putin is going to commit North Korean soldiers anywhere, it would be to repel the ongoing incursion in Kursk Oblast. And that would basically free up, if they repel that incursion, and then also if they're using however many North Korean troops it is to repel that incursion, they freed up potentially tens of thousands of Russian troops to go back to Ukraine and continue pursuing the offensive operations that they have in Ukraine. So it's a little bit more of these trade-offs and these balances within Putin's force structure than really counting on a contingent of North Korean soldiers to quote unquote win the war for Russia. That's never going to be the case. That also wasn't the case with the ammunition or the missiles. It's part of a larger arsenal that fits into the larger strategic calculus.